just gonna set up here. Good evening, everybody. It's good to be here and see everybody again. It's been a little while. It's hard to have two computers here, but anyways, okay. All right, so we're gonna study a little bit about obsession and its diversity. I'm not an expert on that, but it's something that I put together because the topic interests me. And I think it's important that we are aware of the dangers, let's say. You know, we've seen so much in the world, and we've seen people acting in ways that sometimes we cannot understand, and sometimes obsession is one of the components that make people act the way they act. Of course, we have our free will and we can always fight things, but sometimes we give in. So, obsession sometimes is misunderstood as madness in various aspects, spiritual, and it has challenged a lot of scholars. It has challenged health, religion, professionals, and people look for answers. But it is very subtle sometimes, and it's very hard to identify. The clicker. Oh, it's over here. Okay. All right. So these are the bibliography that I used to research on the topic. Okay, Behind the Scenes of Obsession, Mental Disorders and Obsession, the Spirit's books, the Medium books, Various Phases of Obsession, and Obsession and Disobsession. So those are the books that I studied or worked with to bring what I'm bringing today. It's not created by me, but it comes from the Spiritist bibliography, okay? So let's start with what is obsession, right? So obsession is the influence of less evolved spirits onto other spirits, okay? Obsession is always the work of inferior spirits. The high elevated spirits are not going to obsess us, okay? They come to help. If we don't want their help, they'll patiently wait when we are ready for it. So just the less evolved spirits will obsess us. So other concepts of obsession from the Latin obsessione, an idea or thought that continually preoccupies or intrudes on a person's mind, a fixation, a mania, a compulsion. How many times we have a thought that sticks in our mind and we can't get rid of it? And we do lots of stuff, but we keep thinking about that. So obsession is the persistent action that an evil spirit exerts upon an individual. It presents very different characters, from the simple moral influence without noticeable external signs to the complete disturbance of the organism and the mental faculties. So it starts at a subtle thing, but then it can become a much bigger thing. It can affect our bodies, it can affect our emotions, it can affect our mental health. So, spiritual influences. Do the Spiritists influence our thinking and our actions? I guess I already answered that question, but much more than you imagine, so much so that they ordinarily direct you. Okay? So if we don't watch ourselves, if we don't know ourselves and what we really want, where we want to go, what we're prone to, we can be directed by spirits. So we are incessantly surrounded by a cloud of spirits that occupy the space around us, despite the fact that we cannot see them, watching our acts, reading our thoughts, some to do us good, others to do us harm, whether good or bad spirits accordingly. So what makes us attract good or bad spirits into our lives? Our thoughts. Okay? So our thoughts will connect with other thoughts that are at the same level, right? And that's how we attract them. So from the physical and moral inferiority of our globe in the hierarchy of the worlds, the inferior spirits are more numerous here than the superior ones. So because the world where we live in is in a stage where most of the spirits are not sufficiently elevated yet, it is most likely that we will connect with spirits that are in the same level as we are. So among those spirits that surround us, there are those that attach to us, that act more particularly over our thoughts, giving us a device, and whose influence we follow unnoticeably. Good for us if we hear the voice of the good spirits only. So if we only listen to the good spirits, we are in good shape. But if we listen to thoughts like, you're not good enough, you don't know how to do this, okay? You're a nothing, or so many other things that come to our minds, or that person doesn't like you, look at the way he talked to you, look at the way he's acting, things like that comes to our mind unnoticeably. And we think it's ours sometimes. It could be, and it could not be. It depends on what frequency we are tuning in. So the inferior spirits only bond to those that listen to them. That gives them access and to whom they connect. If successful on dominating someone, they identify with their own spirit, fascinating them, obsessing them, subjugating them, and leading them as one does to a child. Okay, so it's very, very likely that if we are simple obsessions can be more easily treated than a fascination or a subjugation. And we're going to see further ahead a little bit more about it. Okay? So some, like in the Spirits book, it says, prolonged obsession can turn into madness. And then the World Health Organization says that 350 million people worldwide suffer from depression today. It's a leading cause of disability. And in the 19th century, they said, crazy is everyone who has lost everything but the right to live. Okay? So the health professionals have been treating some people with medicine and heavy pills when these people could be healed with a disobsession, with healing passes, and so many other alternative treatments that would help them out. Of course, that if the physical is already damaged and the brain has chemical imbalances, you do need the medication. But, however, you also need the disobsession to separate that entity from the person so the person can feel better, and then the medicine can work as well. So, according to medicine, madness is a result of the following factors. I'm reading here because I wrote in red, and I can't read over here because it's too dark. So I have to turn and read over here. I'm sorry if I'm like, Okay, so according to medicine, madness is a result of the following factors: internal factors and external factors. So the internal factors are heredity, infectious contagious diseases, the sequelae of the diseases, viruses, and germs. The external factors are loneliness, anxiety, fear, and social relationships. Okay? So that's how they classify it. Let's go a little bit further, okay? Let's see positive thought versus negative thought. All right, so what it does, so living in multiform, fluid, inescapable. We co-create, localize ourselves in time and space, and we choose our spiritual and earthly companies. Okay? So if we connect, if we have positive thoughts, we are going to connect with companies that are at the same level as us. If we have negative thoughts, we're going to connect with spirits that have negative thoughts as well. And then you're going to say, yeah, it's hard to have positive thoughts every day or every minute of the day. Of course it is. Because sometimes we work with people that are not positive, or we live with people that are in conflict, or we have friends that are depressed. And I could list a lot of things here, okay? Does that influence us? Yes, it does, right? It depends on us to have our shield of protection, you know, and deal with all of it, because we're not gonna get rid of this in this planet for a long time, I guess, you know, until we make the big transition, all right? So it is, so thoughts can either free ourselves or we can become slaves of them. Mm-hmm. So the ideas are shaped according to our thoughts, and they will impress movement and give direction to it. So you can imprint on somebody else's mind your thoughts, because obsession is not only done from a discarnate spirit to an incarnate spirit. You can have a living person, an incarnated person, imprinting their thoughts on you. Okay, so obsession also happens from one person to another. Okay, so no one lives alone. We are always being influenced by others, and we are always influencing other people. We are connected. It's like a network, right? It's a network system. All right. Tell me who you walk with, and I'll tell you who you are. So you must know this sentence, right? So the relation between men and spirits are a constant. Good spirits attract us to good, sustain us in the trails of life, and help us endure with courage and resignation. The wicked impel us to evil. It's a joy to see us succumb and resemble them. That's in the Spirit's book by Allan Kardec. So this proverb suggested that like minds stick together, right? That's what it says. You know, tell me who you walk with, and I'll tell you who you are. So if I know who your friends are, I know more likely how you are and what kind of companies you like. And the kind of companies we like here on earth is the same kind of company that we will attract from the spiritual realm. Okay? So if I like people that like to study, if I like people that like to develop themselves, to improve themselves, if I like people that have that develop their spiritual side, then that's the same kind of company that I'm gonna attract from the spiritual realm. Now, if I am with people that like to party, that like to drink, that like to smoke, or to say, jokes that are not nice, or to make fun of people, then I'm gonna attract the same kind of spirits to my side. And that grows and grows like a snowball, because you already are in that frequency, and then I'm gonna have more people, so everything that I send out comes back to me tenfolded. That's what I have to think. It is easy to be positive and happy all the time? No. But what does the Spirit's book says? We recognize a good Spiritist by the effort he makes to improve himself. So every time we fall, we get up and keep going. We don't give up. Because one day, that's gonna be our state. We're gonna be in a state of grace. We're gonna be in a state where we can look around and things are not going to affect us. People can do whatever they want. They're not going to affect our state of grace. But that's an internal work. That's something that I have to do daily. It's not something that inner transformation doesn't happen like this. Sometimes people go to a therapist and thinking that the therapist is going to do miracles for them. The therapist doesn't do anything. The therapist is the intermediary that helps the person think and helps the person go through the process that they need to go through and transform themselves. So that's how we have to look at it. We have to do our work. Nobody else is going to do that for us. Then, slaves of vice, sex, money, leisure, machines, everything. Denying God allows man the most painful slavery, his self-enclosure in the dark dungeon of overwhelming selfishness. So when there was a moment in planet Earth that they separated God from everything else. And in this moment, we became very individualistic. We became very selfish and very materialistic. I think now we are in a point where we are trying to get back on track, and we are trying to look at ourselves and see, hey, I'm not only this body. There is more to it. There is more truth behind it. And then I go and I'm gonna seek for it. So we always repeat the same crimes. We incarnate, reincarnate, go back, reincarnate again, and we fall into the same mistakes. And that's why it's so difficult to evolve, because we keep falling into the same mistakes. Yes?
What if I am born in a country or a place, a region, that everything about God sounds and seems negative, and I don't want to have anything to do with that those claim it's God?
What? I'm not any specialist, but I'm going to tell you my opinion, okay? I think we have everything we need in our consciousness. And if we follow our inner guidance, we're going to get where we need to be.
But if I am, since the beginning, since my youth, I'm a little child, and I just see war, just see horrible things, and I cannot possibly learn that some something good can come out of whatever God.
I think every individual is different, and I think even when you were born in the middle of chaos, you can think differently. Even though when people have their own ideas and they try to imprint them on you, you can think differently. I'm not telling that this is for everybody, because a lot of people are subjected to influence, but I think there are always those who they excel and they go beyond and above and beyond.
I guess I'm saying, is there any alternative if I don't want to think in the standard way that I have to think about God, I have to accept God? Is that an alternative with the same truth?
I don't have that answer for you. And I never thought about it, actually, to be honest with you. Like I said, I think there is always, people are different individuals with different minds. Each mind is a universe. And I think if you seek, you shall find. But that depends on each one of us. That's my personal opinion. I don't know if anybody else has a different one.
I'm just thinking about what you're saying.
Mm-hmm.
That the vision of God itself, like when you deny God, it can be understood also as denying nature.
Mm-hmm.
Because God is nature.
Right.
You know,
We're part of it.
exactly. We are part of it. You know,
Mm-hmm.
and that's what I think. Even if you deny maybe a belief system that there is a creator over there that's gonna, you know,
Mm-hmm.
you cannot deny the fact that you are God, meaning that
Right.
you are nature.
But have you thought about the fact that there are some atheistic people, that they are better people than people that are inside the church?
Yeah. That's exactly it. Because you might be able to deny
Mm-hmm.
this God
Mm-hmm.
and still, because you don't deny nature,
Right.
you know,
Exactly.
you're still going
You,
through the process.
yeah,
of
that's what
that.
I'm saying. That's your inner guidance. That's in your consciousness, you know. And if you follow that, it doesn't matter if you believe in the God that I believe or if you believe in any God. But you do have that within yourself. And it all also depends on all of the other incarnations that you had, because that is all imprinted in your perispirit. You know? Yes.
I think there's one aspect that is really important.
Mm-hmm.
Nobody is born on a certain place without a purpose. They choose where they should come, whatever. And usually, people, like you're saying, and I know something just by chance, usually if they are meant to evolve, like all of us evolve and stuff like that, most likely they're going to sometime run into a person or a situation or whatever that will allow him to wake up, what you're talking about, this the divine conscience that we all have.
Mm-hmm.
So if you know somebody like that, just the fact that you know the person, you're saying a few words about it, whatever, might awake them up. But sometimes, I think that's my opinion, they are born in that place because they chose it. God knows why in their other incarnation.
Well, nothing is by chance.
Exactly.
You were born here. I was born in Brazil. I live here today. Nothing is by chance, really. There are certain things that are part of your reincarnation, and others you have the free will. Yes, Yonara.
I was just saying that, just to amplify this idea that is broad, is just to say that not everybody chooses.
No, not everybody. No. Yeah, when I say it's part of your incarnation, it's independently if you chose or if it was chosen for you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The part of the plane.
Yeah, part of a plan. Yes, exactly. All right, I like this interaction. It's good. All right, cool. All right, so let's see a little more here. So by subtly linking brain to brain, mind to mind, the dominate will lower the will that allows to be dominated, organ to organ through the perispirit by which it identifies with the incarnate, with which assignment made by the host, more coercive becomes the presence of the guest that turns into an insidious parasite. And that is in the book Behind the Scenes of Obsession from Manuel Filomeno de Miranda. Okay, so I thought that was very important because the connection is done through the perispirit. And then if the obsession is already a subjugation, it's most likely that they are really, really connected, and it's very, very hard to separate them without any harm to the person that is suffering the obsession. So the domain that the spirits manage to acquire over certain people, bonding of committed souls and distressing traits in search of readjustment. Obsessions occur between the two worlds, that of the incarnates and that of the discarnated. These two worlds interpenetrate each other since there are no barriers separating them and no real defined boundaries between them. So, like I said, it's a network. Right? So what are the reasons for obsession? Okay, why would everybody, other than we connecting with them, are there other reasons why they would obsess us?
Revenge.
Revenge could be one. Okay. So Joana de Angelis tells us that any form of obsession results from the personal interrelationship interrupted by the negative forces of aggressions, hatred, betrayal, crime, or expressions of love in disarray which disfigure feelings. Okay, so that's what Joana de Angelis is, a spirit, and she brings that through the medium Divaldo Franco. So the moral imperfections give rise to the action of the obsessory spirit. So mischievous, envy, slander and treachery, jealousy, revenge, desire to do evil, wild and suspicious feline pride, spiritual attractions out of animosity, of sympathy, karmic causes. All of these are reasons for obsession.
Would the unconscious negative influence be in that category of spiritual attraction out of animosity or sympathy? You know, if a spirit unconsciously is influencing the other one,
Right.
and have an idea that this is good, this is positive, it's not, would it be in that category right there?
I think so. I don't have a list of what is in what, but by common sense, I would say so. Yeah, maybe Luigi could answer that question.
Yes, it happens a lot. We see this in the mediumship meetings. When a person stays next to the other, thinking that she's doing a good deed to them, but it's not. Because, like on the other slide that you had, his magnetic attention is stronger than the incarnated one. So he subjugates the other one. But he had a good intention, but it's taking out his free will because it's pushing him to the direction that he wants to go, even though that he's thinking he's doing a good thing.
Right. Yeah.
So it does happen a lot.
Yeah. So it can begin with a simple depression, a monologue in your own head. And then it goes into a dialogue where you ask questions and you hear the answer, you know, and then we speak and something responds. And then it goes on and on and on. So it starts subtle, and then it can grow to a more, or a deeper thing, let's say. So Joana de Angelis says that we get sick and we get obsessed because we are in that spirits. We all have debts. We all owe something. We're all here to offset our debts, let's say. Okay? So we enter into obsession because of our moral deformities. If we didn't have any moral deformities, we wouldn't have any reason to attract such kind of spirit. All right? So in any way, it's always considered the obedience problem because we attract it. Even when it's a revenge from another life, let's say, we may have done something that caused this person that is now a spirit to be revengeful against us, right? All right, so let's keep going. So how does the obsession happen, okay? The obsessive process is not installed immediately. Like I said, start subtle. It is gradual according to the degree or intensity of the obsession. Simple, fascination, and subjugation. At first, the persecuting spirit finds its victim and analyzes one's predisposition and the neglected defenses. Okay. Then the obsessive induction that may even lead to madness starts with the reception of a disturbing idea sent by the obsessor through a persisting action. The obsessor establishes a mental harmony between himself and the persecuted. And then everything happens. So, the symptoms of obsession. Right? When you hear in the recesses of the mind a tormenting idea that stubbornly fixes itself, interrupting the course of thoughts. When constant, imperious, active psychic force interfering in mental processes. When you see the will being dominated by another will that seems to dominate. This is interesting because sometimes you want to come to the center, but you don't, because there is another will, another desire that overcomes your willpower. When growing inquiry in the mental intimacy without real motives. When you feel the impact of unfolding spiritual disarray. Beware, because you find yourself in an imperious and persistent process of persistent obsession. Yes?
Could you explain that when growing inquiry in the mental intimacy without real motives?
Yeah, when you start questioning things that you already had the answer for, but then you start doubting it. And then it's persistent. And that stays in your mind, and then there is no real motive for that. Okay? So, obsessors are those who transitorily give themselves into the fascination of evil, allowing to be detained in a succession of long-lasting madness. So such obsessors, they are adept of revolt, despair. They try to induce disharmony, and they organize themselves in phalanxes. So the obsessors, they know how to explore your weaknesses. They know how to explore your ideas, your thoughts, your feelings. They can get to know your relatives. And if you don't give in, they may go there and obsess one that is close to you. So they know how to do it. So they collect information about our families, our friends, okay? And if you are strong enough not to give in to an obsessor, they may obsess others just to see you suffer. So those are things that we have to be aware of when we see somebody to us that is so close and we see that person going into a state that is not their normal state per se, we should try to help. So just to show it graphically, when you have no symptoms, and then mild symptoms of obsession, moderate symptoms, and then severe symptoms, right? Just a graphic. All right. Some expressions of obsession, all right? So like I said, we can have incarnate to discarnate. Can we obsess a spirit? Yeah. Okay? Let's say we loved somebody so much and this person passed away. That person is in the spiritual realm now. And I'm here crying and suffering and having all of these heavy feelings. And that person is feeling that in the spiritual realm. So I am obsessing that person with my thoughts, with my feelings. Okay? It is normal to grieve. Yes, it's normal to grieve. But when you grieve for 10 years, it's not normal anymore. You're obsessing that person and you are stopping that person of going on with their life in the spiritual realm. We can have obsession from incarnate to incarnate, like I mentioned before. We can have to disincarnate to disincarnate, to disincarnate to incarnate, reciprocal obsession. One can obsess each other. And we can have self-obsession. We can obsess ourselves. So who is the obsessed? And I think I already said, because I mentioned Joana de Angelis. Obsessed, annoyed, tormented, persecuted, an individual who believes himself tormented, persecuted by the devil. The obsessed, we all were at some point or still are obsessed. The obsessed is the tormentor of yesterday and who now presents himself as a victim. So there are no victims. Continuing. So visible or invisible, obsessors are our own work, thorns planted by our own hands. That was by Emmanuel. Obsessor from the Latin obsessor, the one who causes obsession. The obsessor is a spirit, a person like us. It's not a teratological monster that comes out of the darkness where it has its abode for all time. He is not a different being who only lives of cruelties, nor a condemned soul without remission by the divine justice. It's not strange to us. So all of these obsessors, being incarnated or disincarnated, they are not strange to us, and they are not monsters. They are just now in a state of mind where they cannot see things clearly. Should we hate the obsessors? I don't think so, because we are the ones to be blamed for most of the time. So we have to work on what? On ourselves, nobody else. Right. So they are people that love selfishly and demand exclusivity in affectionate relationships. At other times, they love someone in a deranged way with an excessive attachment. A mother or father is strongly attached to a son, or a jealous husband or wife. These are the main characteristics of the obsessor who is not properly attached to evil, but who is attached to selfishness, jealousness, and the feeling of possession. And that's what I said. They're like us. We are also selfish sometimes. We can be jealous sometimes, but some people are more. Some people are really attached. So the mode of action of the obsessor. So subtly at first, in a delicate process of hypnosis, the obsessive idea penetrates the mind of the future guest, who, deprived of the necessary moral reserves, begins to give shelter to the unfortunate thought, incorporating to the own conceptions and traumas that come from his past, through whose behavior gives way to the ungrateful manifestation of obsessive alienation. So it goes little by little. We open the space for them, and they come in. We say the welcome. So consciously or unconsciously, using or not by artifice and intricacies, the obsessor always acts by taking advantage of the moral gaps he finds in his victim. The past tense's conditions are like magnets to attract him, favoring the essential connection to the obsessive process, which can either begin in the cradle or in childhood, or at any stage of the existence of one that is the object of his interest. So sometimes the obsessors find us early in life, and sometimes they find us late in life. Okay. So obsessions exist only to follow the pre-existing obsession on the spiritual. Let me see. What else? Okay. All right. So let's see the types of obsession. Okay, we have intelligent effects, we have physical effects, telepathic obsession, self-obsession, and spiritual obsession, which could be simple, fascination, or subjugation. I really don't want to get into all that now because it's a lot of stuff to talk about. I just want you to have an idea of what it can be, because we could stay here like the whole day talking about obsession. These are just main points that I'm bringing, and I'm bringing a lot. I think I could summarize them much more. But I like to bring a lot of information, and I like to research a lot of different sources and bring whatever I can. So the levels of obsession, this is the spiritual obsession. I think this is what matters to us right now. So the simple obsession, the obsessor degree of restraint. So how do they restrain us? Imposes and interferes, okay? The obsessed nature of effects, disagreeable and importunate. The fascination is the illusion upon the thought and impedes reasoning. And the subjugation is a total constriction and paralyzes the will. Okay?
Can you give an example of subjugation?
Subjugation, I remember a case. One time I went to a seminar in Miami, a Spiritist seminar in Miami. And we had this Spanish doctor speaking about subjugation. I don't remember where he's from now or his name, but I remember the case. So the case was like this. The person was so obsessed, it was in the process of subjugation. And this person was living in a cage because the person acted like an animal, like a wild animal, and nobody could get close to that person. And it was a case of subjugation. It was a case of obsession. That's the level that it can get in terms of subjugation. So obsession is recognized by the following: persistence of a spirit in communicating, good or bad, by writing, listening, typology, etc., opposing other spirits to do so. Illusion that, despite the intelligence of the medium, prevents him from recognizing the falseness and ridicule of communications he receives. belief in the infallibility, and absolute identity of the spirits who communicate and who, under respectable and revered names, say false or absurd things. So this is more for mediums. You know, when you are receiving a communication, you should always analyze what you're receiving and not take everything as a fact or as truth. Or the people that present themselves with names that are known names and that you think, oh, I'm getting a message from Jesus. Oh my gosh, this is true. Not always it is. It could be. It could be. It depends on the level, spiritual or moral level of the medium. Confidence of the medium in praise of the spirits who communicate through it. Disposition to move away from people who can issue useful opinions. So a lot of time we don't want to be advised when we are obsessed. We think we know it all. To take the criticism to the communications that it receives. Incessant and inopportune need of writing. Any physical constraint dominating his will and forcing him to act or speak to his bed, and rumors and persistent disorders around the medium being all the cause or object. So that's from the medium's book, and that's why it talks more about the mediums themselves. There is hope. Therapy. So let's see what we can do. We can pray. Prayer is our connection to the divine, is our connection to the good. We can do fluid therapy or passes or magnetized water. Okay? We can go into sessions of disobsession in serious meetings. We can go to constructive study. The more we know, the more we work on ourselves. We can do our moral renovation. Think about our acts, our feelings, our thoughts. We can make efforts to tame bad inclinations in the constant exercise of good. We have to be patient, we have to be merciful, we have to read and cultivate healthy ideas. These all together help us to keep the obsessors away. And not only in Spiritism it talks about doing good, but Aldous Huxley, in his book The Doors of Perception, he says, kindness, the finesse-carrying individual naturally finds organic, physical, emotional, and psychic fullness, and above all, the pleasure of living. Bernie Siegel in Love, Medicine, and Miracles says love can operate any kind of recovery in the area of health by providing the individual the achievement of balance. And then we have Kardec in the Spirit's book that says, do good and to place all our trust in God, thus repelling all the influence of the inferior spirits and destroying his empire of malevolent forces. And Jesus once said to love our neighbor as ourselves. So, in summary, love conquers all. We have to love ourselves, we have to love our neighbors, we have to work on ourselves to avoid any kind of obsession in our lives. I know it's easy said than done, but we have to try. Let us pray more. Let us love more. Right? So this way we'll be free. And I thought he was not going to show. André Luiz says that it's fundamental to learn how to guard our own thoughts. We think and consequently bring to existence the idealized object.
Oh.
Oops. I think we are without a PowerPoint. Okay. Thank you. It's almost done. I think it's 1 or 2 more. Manny cut me off. Okay, I know I'm talking too much. All right. Okay, that's good. Thank you. Let me keep going from here. All right. Thank you. I had to say it. All right, guys. Thank you so much for listening.
Thank you.
Oh, it's here. Sorry. Thank you so much, Miriam, for bringing this topic, which is very complex, but it's still part of our lives, and we need to learn and understand. There are a lot of things we need to learn, right?